Today we're going to be taking a look at the Pure AI Expert Advisor by Mr. Vitaly Vasilenko. So this bot looks to kind of fall into the category of MQL5 marketplace bots which rely heavily on AI. But the interesting thing here is that some of the algorithms which he's referencing actually work rather well for trading. So curious to see if he's actually using these algorithms, if they're hard-coded into the bots, and essentially what he's doing with this particular strategy. So both kind of gradient boosting with cat boost refers to a specific type of decision tree model. And cat boost is actually the Russian model developed by Yandex. And how decision trees work is that they act as a classifier for the most part in these sort of trading models, where they bucket like trades, or they bucket anything into different classes based on a series of conditions. And the reason why it works super well for trading is it's the most similar to the actual trading decision-making process. So for instance, you could say, like, if the RSI is greater than 10, let's say, I'm just picking a random number, most of the trades are classified into buys. And you could say the same thing with, like, if the 50 EMA is about the 200 EMA, most trades would be classified into buys or inversely sells, right? So essentially you feed this model data, and then it classifies trades, or it classifies data points into buys and or sells, or ups or downs, or essentially two binary classes, provided you're using a binary classifier to be able to make decisions. And it actually works rather well for trading. Like, I've used CatBoost before and various decision trees in trading, so it is rather effective. And K-means clustering is also commonly used as a classification algorithm, and it's a more simplistic model. But you're essentially classifying occurrences of data into clusters using a few different formulas to make it happen. So both of these actually work. So that's kind of the difference between this and most other AI-based bots. Most other AI-based bots lean heavily on large language models, which can work too. However, it's very hard to backtest them. Whereas with these particular models, they actually, you can backtest them very effectively. And if it's actually being used here, it's quite interesting. But I'm always very skeptical of people who are actually using AI, just because it's rather common in the MQL5 marketplace to make claims that are not exactly true. So not quite sure. So here essentially is saying that it uses all of these models to make trading decisions, but we don't exactly know what the exact entry would be. And here he's saying that those models are helpful to filter out bad trades, and that it primarily trades on the H1 time frame. It trades gold, and it uses both a time filter and a news filter. So all interesting enough here, and we're seeing that it has a beautiful equity curve. Obviously, these are just like too good to be true, because you typically don't turn probably less than $1,000 to $73 million. Like, that's obviously completely false. But at the same time, perhaps there's something here. So now I took the liberty of running a backtest here in the MQL5 marketplace, and to me this looks very clearly like a grid martingale. So maybe I will go back a little bit, because it did blow in. I ran a 6-month backtest here because it was taking absolutely forever. It did appear to be blowing in more March of last year. So let's go to March and zoom in on the M5. And interestingly enough, it's taking tons of trades. I have yet to see a grid form, but here we go. So there is a grid forming as well. And it's shorting gold in a massive uptrend, which just seems incredibly silly. And it takes tons of little trades. Yeah, tons of little trades. But when price goes against it, I wouldn't be surprised if it's opening a grid pretty aggressively. So yeah, little grids here. Grids. One thing to note, it was also exceptionally slow at running. So I'm not quite sure if it's perhaps doing some sort of history reading or some sort of manipulation of the signal. Let's see if we can find, yeah, here we go. So it opens at a similar time. I'm looking for a larger grid just to see if we're able to. Here we go, perfect. You can always check oh yeah, there we go. Yes, so very much grid martingale. And it's not necessarily just scaling lot size, but it is aggressively scaling positions. So yeah, this is when we were in an incredibly strong uptrend. It kept trying to short gold, and then gold essentially eventually reverted to the mean. But this is an incredibly bad strategy to do right now, particularly with gold having trended upwards and upwards and upwards and upwards this year. If you use this type of strategy, you're almost guaranteed to blow your account. And there's one of the reasons why we're also not seeing a live signal. Like a grid martingale on gold never makes sense. A grid martingale on gold this year is essentially like a count suicide. So not a history reader, there is a real strategy here. He could be saying that through his AI models, he's able to filter out low probability trades, and essentially he's able to reduce the risk of this happening. However, even if you improve your win rate significantly, and I've actually done something similar, like I once used decision trees on a grid martingale to see if I could like significantly improve my win rate and therefore reduce the risk of having a big grid like this. It does make it can work, but then you still never know, right? Because in AI models, even if they improve your win rate, it reduces the probability of something like this happening. It can still very much happen. And from my experience doing something similar, even if he is using cat boost, and we have no guarantees he is, it's still probably not a great idea to use this type of system on gold, because you're applying a mean reversion system on a heavily trending asset during a particularly strong bullish period. So gold might reverse now to the downside, but even if it does, it's probably going to trend pretty heavily. Gold is not a very noisy mean reverting asset, making this type of system typically very inappropriate. So yeah, like maybe, so here we can see there's a few big grids too. Wow, this is pretty insane. Okay, let's go into the inputs tab. Maybe he has an equity stop loss. There's no stop loss here. You have the option of adding one. So yeah, I think this is why we're seeing that there's no live signal, because frankly, this type of system is not very sustainable on gold. So big takeaways here. The AI models that he's talking about actually are real, like applicable AI models for a change. So perhaps he is using them, but you would have to confirm with the developer if you're interested in this type of bot. And for the actual trading strategy, simple grid martingale on gold, not scaling lot size, but scaling lot quantity. And that's another kind of sneakier way of typically doing a grid martingale. And unfortunately, this type of system just does not work well on gold. So I would very much recommend stay away. It seems honest enough, but just it's not a great strategy for gold. And it is a common mistake that people try to make, because people like to trade gold and people like grid martingales, and you try and combine the two together. But unfortunately, it's not a very sustainable long-term strategy. So guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Take care. I'll see you in the next one.